Okay, the piece we're looking at today was originally called They Know What They're Doing. I'm not so sure, but that was the title rather than Call Back, which is the time when everybody has to get back to the ship and just so we can move. And I thought I'd sort of mention, you know, there's also many nautical terms, and they're a puzzle to a reader. And one of them is the term bit, because it comes in and you're sitting on a bit, and then there's smaller bits and larger bits. And I looked it up in the dictionary. I couldn't find it. I thought, well, this is ridiculous. And then I did find it. It's got two T's, so B-I-T-E, and then it sort of clearly a noun. And it holds the wires and the cables, like the ship's anchor, you know, when it's brought in, there's all of the cable that's required and whatnot. And but they can be as small as like just 2 inches, because I could see them on a ferry boat. I asked one of the workers there, I said, what do you call that? Because I knew it was the right shape. He said, oh, that's called a bit. So bits can be small or they can be really large. And in this case, we've got one where I'm sitting on a mushroom type, not in this story, but another one. But I'm sitting on a mushroom shaped bit. And you think, well, what in the world is that?
We'll have to do it.
I might as well each time introduce one term so it doesn't get to be too confusing, but it's sort of nice to know that the reality of what this means, you know. But I did look it up in a French dictionary and a French English dictionary and in a regular dictionary, a Merriam-Webster's, and I forget what the third one was before I found the spelling, which I didn't know when we published this, and it's only got the one T, because I knew the word was right, but it turns out the spelling of it wasn't correct, you know, the sound was correct, yeah.
So for all present and future readers, when you see it with one T, imagine a second T.
Add a T, yeah.
Yeah.
This story has whistling in it, and once I read it at Simon Fraser University, shortly after I'd written it, and I got a beautiful whistler, and he whistled throughout the whole song, but I won't do that. I can't even get a note anymore. So it's too bad, because that would make it perfect. Yes, good. So throughout the piece, it's meant that it's often when hell is arriving and whatnot, but it's meant, it's just sort of a background that I particularly, I've always loved men who whistle, like who are working and whistling, and you hear that you know, sort of a type, no matter what song they're singing, there's something joyful about it. So this is Callback, and I'm reading from Wanting Everything today. Nobody is moving quickly, because when they do move quickly, they only have to wait. So why move quickly? 2 longshoremen on the dock catch the slings. I'm going to interject again. When the ship is in Vancouver, then you have to have longshoremen on the docks. When we're in these little places, it's the crew that does all this work. But the crew they're not eligible to do what would be longshoremen's work when we're in Vancouver. So this is why we've got so many males, and double the number of males that you normally have, simply because the longshoremen are doing this work, and the winchmen and whatnot. So 2 longshoremen on the dock catch the slings, slowly pace the narrow pipes into the sides of a wooden flat that is loaded with crates of Molson. And I assume everybody will know that's Molson beer. The men steady the wires as the winch driver hauls the load up, then swings it up over the wharf, across the water to the Nootka. The 2 men just stand there and wait and talk. The Molson sways a moment as the winch driver moves to another handle, then jerks as he centers the load. Then down it goes into our dark hold. I've been standing near the winchman. Uh, I've been standing near the winchman watching men work and wait. Men weave tow motors back and forth around the dock, in and out of the warehouse, carrying stacks of empty flats and full loads of McGavin's bread, potatoes, 7-Up, lettuce, bales of wire, everything imaginable, even a motorboat. Nobody seems particularly happy or unhappy. They just know what they're doing and when to do it. How come you're not at the Princeton? The winch driver asks me as he waits for the man in the hold to unload. I don't answer, just smile at him. Is that difficult? Nah, he said, you want to try? He says as he steps out from the gears. I look at all the metal sticks and the huge green wheels and the wire cable and shake my head. One of the men on the dock hollers, come on, and I leave. I climb up the ladder and walk past the freshly painted wheelhouse and go down another ladder to the poop deck, then around the corner to just outside my cabin. I lean on the railing next to the empty boxes full of garbage buckets, buckets and wooden crates covered in lettuce leaves and crumpled brown paper. I watch the oil on the water, the night city neon just starting. I think again, the boat keeps shifting. We do also, changing, not fast enough. Wonder where he da 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 da. So the music, the whistling, please whistle. Whistling, not too far off, but so lonely. A body flops over me tight. I can't, a rough chin scrapes my neck. Breathe. Hands glom into my tits. What are, I try to duck down. You just seeing if they're real, Lefty says. Lefty, you're not seeing. I say as both my hands circle his left wrist. I pull my hand away. You're nothing, no words. Too shocked to think. He gently slides the other hand out as if I had let him touch me. And he stands there with the cocky grin. Scared you, he says. No, you didn't. But you did, you bastard, and I'm not going to show it. Come have a mug up. I don't want one. Come have one anyway. We go through the hot mess to the hotter galley. He pours boiling water into a green square pot and swirls it around. See this? It's mine. You don't use it for anyone but me. Octopus Quinton in white paint, mixed up her lowercase. I wouldn't think of it. Not even when I'm not here, he says. I won't. I rinse out a mug and pour myself a cup of coffee. Cut me a slice of onion, he says. I can't see any onion. Where are they? In the fridge. Where'd you expect? I can't remember seeing any there when we stowed the stoves this afternoon, but I go into the walk-in anyway, which is jammed with supplies. I look around at the packages of meat wrapped in brown paper, pounds and pounds of butter, huge hunks of cheese, heads of lettuce, celery, green onions, but not. The door slams shut from the outside and the light turns off. Let me out, Lefty. Lefty, I can't see. He laughs a dirty gut laugh. Betty always has them peeled. On the deck, he says, in a can. Absolutely no light, surrounded by vegetable smells. My fingers feel for the handle all over the cool metal door. None. Let me out. The cooler opens. I almost trip on the sill as I duck under his arm. My head just misses the mugs, which are in a tall white case on the wall. I straighten up, limbs awkward, my breast still feeling his fingers. Don't look at him. I lift my coffee from the wooden counter and take it into the mess where I find the canned milk beneath the Vancouver sun. He's soon next to me, Spanish onion in his mouth, one arm on the table, the other holding his tea, which he puts down. He takes the huge onion out and says, how do you like boat life? I don't know yet, I answer. Do you like men? Sure. I say, stirring the coffee much too much, which he notices. What type appeal to you? Well, how about me? And I look at him, medium build and loose-legged, brown eyes that dare me, biting his onion as if he knows who I am and how he is. He sees me taking in the whole, looks proud, slowly slurps a bite down. Do you like to suck? My God, what do you say answer to that? I don't. I just walk out of the mess to the poop deck. Lefty follows me, and Hal's there, leaning on the railing, and Jock sitting on a wooden box that he gets up from, then gives to me. Didn't mean to frighten you. You don't mind, do you? Says Lefty, so all three of us can hear. He then passes me and sits on the after peak. I look at Hal, who was whistling, and at Jock. He's not impressed, and at Lefty, his legs spread apart, waiting but not waiting for me to say something. But I don't. He finishes his onion, licks a cigar, lights it with a wooden match stuck with his thumbnail, and Hal looks at the sky. And I do also. I feel more with him than anyone else. Gonna be a good run, says Lefty, looking at the sky and looking at all three of us. No one says anything. The note keeps shifting as she's being loaded. I steady myself by bracing my foot on the rope and pressing my hand, fingers spread on the bulkhead as the boat moves the other way. Finally, Lefty tries to make conversation with Jock, who's right beside me. How much more to go? They're loading Zabella's last again, Jock answers. Those hot shot supervisors, you can't tell them anything. They don't even know how they're asked from a hole in the ground. Hal and Lefty nod agreeing. Excuse me, Jan, but the longshoremen here are putting our next to last load in last. So we have to keep moving Zabella's cargo every time we unload at 20 other ports. Alphabetically, I suggest. No excuse, no reason, nothing but stupidity. I watch the car lights moving down the hills of the North Shore as the men chat about overtime they'll get because of this mistake. Where's Ken? A tall man shouts from behind the passengers on the upper deck. Don't know, says Jock. This here is our new best girl, Jan. Jan, that's Buck. Buck gives me a crinkly smile, waves and disappears. You seen the big monkey? Asks Jock. I shake my head up at his belly. Not since noon. Supposed to start and watch, Jock says. And Bebo? He asks Lefty. With his woman, he answers. Hal passes between Lefty and me and goes into the crew's wash space, or fiddly, which is just off the deck. On the upper deck are some passengers, mainly old people, sloped bellies and knotted necks and heavy heels, move towards close to the railing. The passengers look at us a moment or so, and getting no particular response, drift off. I watch the flag fold in and out, and think of the flag at UBC with the round metal clips hitting the metal pole, the sound of metal clips hitting the metal pole, and carrying right into my bedroom at the dorm at night. Jan, says Jock, tell Lefty why you quit the CPR. Lefty looks at me questioningly, and for the first time since he's asked me that other question, I look him in the eyes. Come on, Jan, tell us your story. It was nothing, I say. Let us decide, he says. Why not? He's going to push me no matter what I do. Well, at the beginning of the summer, I worked on the Vancouver for 6 weeks without a paycheck. When we got ours, there were only we got only 2/3 of what the male coffee room attendants get, and they had the same job we did. When I asked one of the seamen about the cut, he told me who my union rep was. I'm your delegate here, says Lefty. If you've got a beef, you come to me. Even if it's about you, I ask. Sure, he says, why not? I don't know about that. I say, double jeopardy. Tell your story, he says. You just found out who represents you. Was I surprised? Here I worked all last summer and assumed that the man who always wore the dark suit was an officer or a supervisor because he only came on at noon and always spent his entire time drinking coffee and eating pie with the chief or second steward. Bibo swings down the ladder from the upper deck. I'm not here, he says, drops into the ladder down inside the fiddly to the crew's quarters and is gone. Jock winks at me and signals with his head to look up. Bibo, a plump blonde woman calls from above. Bibo, she repeats as she stands above the ladder. You seen Bibo? She yells at Lefty. Not yet, he says, and Jock nudges over next to me and shrugs. Happens all the time, lass. I know he's around here somewhere, she says. I know, because I've seen him. Over his shoulder, Jock calls up to her. Why don't you check the wheelhouse, lass? Or ask the mate? I look at her swelled up belly, droopy breasts, and formless waist, but can't quite make out her features because the light's between her and us. He's down there with you, isn't he? Isn't he? She yells right at me, or I take it that way. I shake my head toward her. I'm coming down, she says. I'm coming. And she does. Her red skirt blows up, blocks the light, but I can see her. No underpants, round rump, rolly thighs, little tuft of hair. Embarrassed, I turn my head and look at a rope wound round the bed. So little hair, I could see the folds, everything. I can't believe it. All right, where is he? I can smell rye and lavender perfume. She pinches my arm above the elbow and pulls it hard. Are you going to tell me, or? I really don't know, I say. I can feel little blood pricks float to the surface of my face and back. Lay off the kid, Bibo says as he runs out of the fiddly, then jumps over the bed, rounds the corner of the superstructure. She follows him as fast as she can, which is pretty fast. My money. I'm not leaving you, bohunk. Leaving you, you bohunk. Lefty laughs at me. I rub my arm and look down. You ain't seen pussy before? I don't look up or over. They're not all the same, you know. I know. I wish you'd shut up. I know. I wish I hadn't looked. I know. I feel like an intruder. Watch your mouth, Lefty, says Jock. I look at the creosote piles and smile over at him. Well, what happened, says Lefty. What happened? I repeat. With your union rep. Oh, that. I can hardly think. Her naked labia, the pinch. Well, he told me that during the winter, at a meeting where no women were present, the man voted to lower the female coffee room attendants' wages in order to keep the males the same. He also told me there wouldn't be a meeting until September, when all of us would be back at school. So I said, I quit. You can't quit, said the chief. Just watch me, I said. I'll work the weekend, and that's all. Jock gives me a big grin. Things are better here, says Lefty. The cook gets the highest wage of the crew, even higher than me. That's so, I say. Yes, Jock says, but Lefty packs in overtime, as do the rest of us. So the crew does take home more. Hal steps out of the fiddly as Ken comes down the ladder. Where you been, lad? Says Jock to Ken as Ken says, turn 2 and 5. Motherfucker, we hear the woman shout. I turn toward the mess, the galley. Bibo laughs as he runs, like it's all a big joke. Cocksucker, she yells as she passes the canned goods cupboard. Bibo nudges at my leg as he passes, almost stumbles on the bed as Hal and Ken get out of the way so he can make it up the ladder. Her head is large, hair blown out, eyes small, almost a double squint. She pauses above Lefty and gives him a nasty look and spits on his jeans. Then she passes and stands at the bottom of the ladder and looks at all of us as she wheezes and snorts and tries to catch her breath. Lefty knocks the gob of spit off his jeans with the side of a wooden match in one slow stroke. And she doesn't say anything, and neither do we. Then slowly, heavily, she climbs the narrow ladder. Ken moves next to my shoulder and laughs down at me. Enjoying yourself? I turn up and we both smile. Too much happening to tell. He brings his side close to my arm as Hal goes up the ladder. See you later? Ken asked me. Lefty gets up as Jock goes to the start to do something with the ropes. I move my shoulder to Ken's thigh. I don't want to talk about us or anyone we know, I say quietly. It's up to you, he says. I'm on the 8 to 12. He's supposed to be. Same old Ken, always. Here, he says, in half an hour. You better get going, you big monkey, shouts Jock. Ken nudges me with his leg, then quickly runs up the ladder, wearing thongs of all things, and smiles at me. Big round head, cauliflower ears, from above, and takes off. I watch Jock for a minute, then go toward my cabin to straighten myself. But the engine's noise gets louder and faster, and I look at the piles, the lights, the edge of the green gangplank being pulled in from above. And there the blonde whore is, on the dock, waving and screaming as we start to move out. Arms high, curved, a weird sort of dance to the fucking bastard in the fucking ship. We back out past her, and she stays there, solid, the same place. We start to turn. Her legs are apart, arms fluid, mouth screaming, and we're out and can't hear her anymore. I quite like this one in many ways, but there's so much packed in all the time that I sort of wonder how readers even manage to sort of get through it. I don't know what flow or how it's received in a way. I mean, I know when I read it at Simon Fraser, the audience was really good. You just knew they were in tune, but that was partially the whistling was so great too. So it was paced right. My pacing is a little bit off here,
No, it's great, and yeah, that Betty is such a strong character. It's one of those things that like you see her,
yeah.
And you see her in your mind's eye. She's described so vividly. It's like you can't unsee her. Jen can't unsee her.
That's exactly what I wanted.
So I was going to ask, relating to the conversation about the BITT bit beforehand. Yeah. So a lot of this, obviously, a lot of these stories must come from personal experience.
Yeah.
But it also seems that you've done a lot of research after the fact about the sort of specifics of the boat and just trying to make sure that all the details are authentic and just right.
But do you know Stan Persky?
Yeah.
Well, he did play a little joke on me, and so anyway, some of these things just we're not caught. So even like when I said, okay, the after peak, and I thought, oh, I hope that peak is not a word from Persky. So like I was trying to, so he's responsible for at least two things being sort of wrong as joke. He thought I would catch it at some point, but I didn't.
Oh, seriously?
So there's a couple, yes, so like, I mean, it is hard, I mean, to get the terminology, is and yeah, anyway, yeah.
So you mean to say he changed it?
Yeah,
And when he was reviewing the manuscript?
yeah, I had the word I didn't know the word for bit for one thing. That was one of the ones, but it's there's I'll think of it for next week what the other one was, because I was able to catch it before the initial publication of the book, but the other one, and there was sometime when I was reading here, I thought, Jesus, I wonder if you check this one out too to see that. It's sort of like it's sort of like he's from Midsummer's Dream, and he's sort of Puck, he wants to wants to screw things up a little bit.
That's a great image. So he reviewed early drafts of the manuscript then, or?
Stan moved to Vancouver in 67. I think he moved in the same year that I had started the boat stories. And he also lived across the street from me in a house that later that Cliff and I lived in when it was a commune. So often when I finish a story, I like to read it, and I just always wait till Cliff comes home. But also Stan got to hear them as they were developing, heard some of them as they were developing. I was in Wisconsin though that year of 69 and 70, so not those. So it had to be before that or after that. And Stan might get to hear and give some feedback. And he had been in the Marine, as many men did in those days. They would go into the military for a number of years and get that over with, or find themselves that they didn't like it or that they really liked it.
Mm-hmm.
But my ex-husband did that. He went to the Air Force, and Stan went and Stan. And George Stanley, so I mean, it's one of the things you did. So your name's not going to be drawn once the Vietnam War started. And so if you've already done your volunteer work, if you've done it for 3 years, you're anyway, whatever.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't actually know that Stan was in the Marines, so he became your kind of fact checker.
Yeah, well,
slash fact obscure.
Yes, exactly.
Oh, yeah, so that's great. That's really great. And in terms of other research that you've done sort of after the fact, because it was, when the book is published in 1988, right?
Yeah.
So there's quite a bit of time between when you start writing the boat stories
and when I finish them.
And when you finish them. So was a lot of that time spent doing additional research or editing, or
doing other things too, because I was working full time and I had a child, and I was working part time, and then later I took on a full time job, and because I was just so tired of being poor. When every single month, if anything happens, you have just $50 spare, and it went either into the car or into my teeth. Something either I go to the dentist and he find out something, or else I'd be in the car and realize something was wrong. So it just so marginal. And finally, and luckily, the BC government became the NDP, and they opened daycares. And so I had to pay only $35 a month for daycare once that happened. And that was really, which was, it's not a small sum, because, the rents were like 100, well, the place was for 130. I got 30 off because I was being the caretaker. And everybody got an enormous amount of money, work from scrub to the top deck to make sure the garbage. I also was the one who interviewed new tenants and whatnot, and took complaints, or I had to be there if the gas man was coming, and there's something wrong with in one of the units. There's 6 units. There was 5, then it eventually became 6. I don't know what thread I lost. I lost the thread.
Oh, what happened between writing the stories and publishing the stories? So
Yeah. So a lot of life happened
a
between.
lot of life happened. Yeah.
A lot
As
of
it-
life from the start. But plus, every single summer, every single May for ages, I had to go to the dentist and just get work done.
Mm.
And but every summer it was like, oh no, I can't get into these stories. And it takes an enormous amount of work to write for me to write one of these stories, because there's a lot of stuff in it. And George Stanley said, well, it's because you're doing something that other people haven't done. That's how he feels that why, they're compressed and they're just, like if you just you could take single paragraphs of things and just sort of see, hey, there's a little world there, a little situation. I'm not sort of playing on them as some other authors might, like they draw it out of that situation into something else. So there's a lot sort of, I think many readers might think, well, there's just too much going on in any one story, but I don't think there is. I think it's the right proportion, but there are, nobody writes stories with this many characters. But I want to give each character his or her due too, so I want to sort of, let them come out of it, and I enjoy that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's such an apt observation on George Stanley's part, really, that each paragraph is its own
Yeah.
world. I love that. That's exactly
Mm.
perfect way to describe what's going on.
Yeah. Well, he's just read it recently, and he hadn't read them before because he wasn't around during the time and many times. So George didn't really sort of know me as a writer. He knew he wrote, but he didn't sort of know me as a writer. Whereas now he's reading this and he's saying, wow, he very much appreciates it. Yeah.
Like recently, since Wanting Everything came out.
Yeah.
Oh,
I gave
wow.
him a copy. I gave him a copy of Wanting Everything, and he had not read the book. And he read all the Peter stories, which he really enjoyed. And then he read the birth account too, which really surprised me. I didn't expect him to read it. I mean, some people that's what they read, but not. I wasn't expecting George to read that. And then now he's read the Watery Part of the World.
Oh, so fantastic! I'm so happy to hear that.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously a very thoughtful and astute reader too, to have to do that. So
yeah,
nice to have that feedback.
Yeah.
Great. Well, shall we